Hello and welcome to part 5 of the Sennelier watercolor swatching. In this video I will show you the end result of the dried color charts so you can compare the colors. I am going to show you some other color charts for a quick and quite superficial comparison. Because I can't go in depth here, because then I would have to start discussing pigments, single pigments, stuff like that, and I just want to give you an overall impression of the difference between the brands. But what I want to show you most of all is why I like Sennelier paints. When you go back to the first Sennelier review I did, it was of this box. It's a set of paints that I bought in France 1.5 years ago, and at first I was rather disappointed, and the disappointment was in the fact that the colors were a little bit too transparent, that I couldn't quite get the same intensity that I was used to, because I had been using Schminky until that day, and well, when you look at this color chart you can see immediately that Schminky is very intense of color. I will also show that in comparison to the Sennelier paints, because when you see these little dots of paint here, I've only needed to pick up just a tiny bit of paint to get this incredibly intense swatch. So I was used to this intensity, and then I moved on to the Sennelier paints, and at first I was disappointed in the because it was too transparent, too translucent, and also, as you can see, I'm going to zoom in for you so you can see what I mean. One of the first finds that I did with this paint was that I used a lot of paint because of it, because you know, when you want intense color, then you will need a lot of paint to reach the same intensity as the intensity I was used to. However, when you keep working with a certain paint, which I did because I had bought the set after all, so then you will keep working with it, then you learn how to work it, and you discover new things about it. And what I discovered is that this technique is this paint is absolutely perfect for a beautifully vibrant and transparent layering technique for glazing. Right now I have a course going on using that same technique. I'll zoom out a little bit. The course is called The Lady in Watercolor and Mixed Media, and this is a painting technique that is based on layering, on the glazing, and the Sennelier colors, they allow for quite a bit of layers, I think even an unthinkable amount of layers, making each layer more vibrant. So in the beginning I didn't like it because I used to work with Schminky in a certain way, but then I discovered that the glazing technique actually worked for me in a lot of ways, and then I discovered that I really do love Sennelier paints. So right now I think my go-to paints are Sennelier and Schminky Horadam. I use them together sometimes because sometimes you want transparent right next to very intense, but I also I like how they how can I say, how the weak spots of one is the strength of the other, and vice versa. So this course, The Lady in Watercolor and Mixed Media, is forever running. So you could, if you're interested, you can visit my Etsy page. It's on there, and you can step in and do it in your own pace. It's a very accessible workshop that really helps people develop their watercolor skills. So if you're interested, the link will be right underneath this video. So talking about that layering, I have yesterday I made a couple of watercolor clouds, and I will take one to show you the layering, why I like it so much. And I am using this palette now, because right now all my palettes are, there is still some paint in it from projects I'm doing. So I wanted to use this palette. And I will zoom in. As you can see, I have a rather greenish background. Zooming back out just a little bit. But here we go, and we create another cloud, another layer of color. And you can do that with any brand, don't get me wrong. But what Schmincke does, because it's so vibrant, even when it's still translucent, and also when you add quite a bit of layers on top of one another, you will find that you can actually see that this paint creates a rather smooth surface. I have watered the paint down enormously. I have used very little paint, but as you can see here, there is still quite a bit of color on the paper, and I watered the paint down excruciatingly. So this is what I like to use. It's quite difficult again to talk to you guys and do my thing at the same time. So this is what I use it for. In my experience, the previous layer of watercolor paint that I lay down is not coming off when I paint over it with the Schmincke, with the Sennelier, sorry. So with the Sennelier paints, the previous layers remain as they are. And that's certainly not the case for every paint. There are paints, there are pigments, there are brands that sometimes they will simply pop right back off the paper once you touch it with a wet brush. And in this case, you could see that you can still see the underlying watercolor cloud. And that is what I like so much about this paint. In my experience, this paint does it best for this technique. So here, when I want to work with glazing and layering, I take the Sennelier, and for areas and details that I want great intensity with, usually at later stages of this kind of painting, when we reach this stage, when I need more intensity, I will grab other paints as well, like the Schmincke paint, for instance, or gouache even. So that's why the Sennelier, why I like it as much as I do. And isn't it funny how when you start out with a certain kind of paint, you end up liking it a lot more later on. I'll zoom out again so that I can start showing you a little bit of the color charts that I made. Light remains a problem in the sense that, you know, when I want to bring across the colors, it is next to impossible for several reasons. I think I said it before in these videos, but the first reason is that, you know, I'm filming by daylight and every day I've got different light. Second reason is I do have lights, they are daylight lamps, and they make the work more bluish, so I actually didn't put on the lamps right now. Then there is my video editing software that will do something to the colors automatically. Any software does. Then there is, you know, transferring it from a video format to another video format. Then, you know, it's my screen settings, it's your screen settings. So all in all, I can't give you a perfect rendering of the colors. I can show you, point out to you some things that that jump out at me. What I really need to tell you here is that these colors are incredibly intense for all the charts, and that is largely due to the fact that I smeared quite a bit of paint onto the paper straight from the tube. So this I think if you were looking for the right colors, you would have to look in this area rather than that area, because this area is almost pure pure from the tube. It is a beautiful and intense color chart, and there are some colors that really jump out at me. Unfortunately, some colors are that jump out at me are not light fast. And the first thing I noticed, and I didn't really notice when they were still in the tubes, but the first thing I noticed is that what I feel is missing a bit is pinks. And there is quite a bit. Here is the orange, then we sink down to the red, more red, and we sink down into the violet kind of reds. We have the Crimson Lake here, and the Rose Madder Lake, and only the Rose Madder Lake is permanent, and all the rest is not really very good at light fastness. Of course, the Opera Rose I already mentioned, but all the bright red colors here are not light fast, which is kind of a shame, because you would like to have some light fastness in there. That is to say, there are light fast alternatives like the Rose Madder Lake, so you would have to check it out really well before you use it for commissions, what color you'd be using. I love the Sennelier red. It looks very, very much like an Old Holland color that I used to buy a lot, which was, I think, Scheveningen red. It's beautifully intense. It evens out beautifully, and yeah, well, I like it very much. I love the blues here, the Prussian, the indigo, and the Innenthrene blue. The Innenthrene blue comes very close to Delft blue by Old Holland, and I think many brands have a color that looks like this, and I think it's a pretty amazing and deep blue color that really is an addition to the indigo and the Prussian blue here. The dioxazine purple is beautifully deep. As you all know, I'm all for deep colors, so that's the first thing that I notice. For instance, when I look at the Naples Yellow Deep, this is a color, it seems a bit muddy to me. Apparently people are asking for that question, or otherwise it wouldn't be in here. I don't know what people use it for. It's a color I would never use. I wouldn't use Naples yellows at all. But well, maybe you do like it. It seems to be granulating a little. So that was a little intermezzo. There were people coming here with a truck to clean the street lanterns, and Tibber, my dog, he didn't really like it. So anyways, I was saying, Well, I love the blues. I was just a little bit disappointed at then not being a really nice, light, fast pink. There is a permanent. Where is it? There was a permanent magenta here. This is permanent magenta, and when you look at it, to me, it doesn't look like permanent magenta. This to me looks like a certain kind of violet, a very dark. It's a purple. It's a reddish kind of purple. So I was a little bit disappointed at that, to be honest, because usually magenta, you know, is a great paint to turn to when you want to paint when you want to use more light, fast pigments. I have to mind the back sides because, as you can see, these are all still little dots of paint that might still, it can remain a bit sticky. Now let's, oops, as I said, let's turn to the blues and the greens. There was this color, this blue I'd never heard of before, Sennelier's blue. It's this color of blue, and it is, I think, a wonderful addition to the light blues that I have, because I already have cerulean blue, but to me cerulean blue is often a bit dull and I don't really like it. So I like the Sennelier's blue, and I'm really curious how I can use that and what it will look like. The Sennelier blue, I like it very much. It's a beautiful deep color. And that's a little bit more phthalo-ish blue than the Innentrien blue. So I like that very much as well. Then the royal blue, I always like royal blue, although it's not transparent, but I really, really like this color, and I sometimes use it in my work. The turquoise green is very, very opaque. That has a gouache feel to it. And let's see, what else can I say about these colors? The chromium oxide green is also a bit dull and very, very opaque. So this is a color I don't think I would use a lot, although I think you can use it when you're doing landscapes, nature scenes, when you're doing mosses and stuff like that. The brown pink, you know, I've looked at this for a little while, and I've really tried to see pink in this, but I'm sorry, it just doesn't work. I'm still curious why they call it brown pink. I'm still thinking probably it's Sennelier they're laughing their socks off right now. But it is a lovely color though. It's a really lovely color that I would use any time, because it's a golden, mossy olive green, and I like it a lot. Well, of course, there is the French ochre that is a beautiful golden, and certainly an addition to my color palette that I will show you, because here is the quinacridone gold, and I don't know if you can see it as well as I can, but this French ochre would fit perfectly well with this quinacridone gold. Because it's the same transparency and the same character of paint, and that it behaves similarly, and it's beautifully vibrant. So these two colors for me will be perfect. And let's see, the Payne's grey is a real grey. It's not very bluish, only slightly. The warm sepia is, in my experience, a bit on the brown side, since I have the Rembrandt, and if I use the Rembrandt a lot, and I think the Rembrandt is much more dark, if I remember correctly, and is much more between the raw sepia here and the warm sepia over there. So but I do like it, and I can see myself using it. The Van Dyke brown, I'm not so sure if I like it, or maybe I'm quite sure I don't like it. Maybe you could use that for painting trees and stuff, but it's kind of a reddish, brown. In my experience, Van Dyke brown is always a real dark brown. It's almost as brown as the warm sepia, but then slightly less greyish black. And I use it a lot, so I was a bit surprised about this colour. But you know, I want to point out again that that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a difference that I just want to point out for you. I love the raw umber. It's beautifully transparent, and this will make a really beautiful colour to use for shading in all kinds of paintings. Then I love the warm and the Sennelier grey and the light blue grey, the warm grey and the Sennelier grey, and also the emerald green here. For some reason, I think these colours fit perfectly modern, contemporary, vintage style illustrations, the minimalist illustrations, in the colours that it uses a lot. So the emerald green, the warm grey and the Sennelier grey would fit that perfectly. The warm grey and the Sennelier grey are quite opaque, but I like them very much. The warm grey, for those who come from the mixed media world, Titan Buff would be the other name for this colour. The greenish umber is absolutely fantastic. A really, really great shading colour for landscapes, for forest scenes, for portraits even. I love this one. This one is certainly going to be in my collection. I also said that of another paint I reviewed earlier this week, which is the Perylene Green. And I have a feeling that the Perylene Green by Schminky Hordam and the greenish umber by Sennelier are quite similar, but I would have to compare in mixing whether that's true, or I could just look up the pigment, of course. Right, what else can I say about these colors? The only thing I can say is that I recommend these paints highly. I can show you a little bit of comparison to some other brands that I swatched. These are the Old Hollands, and I have to say, when I took out this sheet of swatches, I was startled a bit because the paints look a bit pale, and I don't quite remember if that is because I used only a little paint to make these swatches, or that these paints actually paled down this much inside a cabinet. There are some colors that are really intense still, but overall some colors seem to have paled down quite a bit, like the coral orange, the Scheveningen yellow deep, the Indian yellow, brown lake. I don't know if that's supposed to be that, but in my mind, these colors were more vibrant when I left them in the drawer. The total contrast of that is the Magello Mission Gold, and I know some viewers are going to say, I told you so, this is good paint. Of the Magello Mission Gold, I was not very optimistic about this paint, because, well, it is very vibrant, as you all can see. This is like, I mean, just if you have these two side by side, there is no digital manipulation whatsoever. We can all tell which one is more saturated and a higher contrast. It clearly is the Magello Mission Gold. So, is it an intense paint? Absolutely. The reason I didn't like this paint very much is because of its flow qualities. I didn't like that the paint didn't seem to flow as well as the paints that I was used to, like Rembrandt, Schminky Hordam, the Sennelier and the Old Holland. And since it comes at an even higher price, I would like to have a characteristic like that. But having said that, as you can see, this is a really intense and bright paint compared to the Old Holland. Well, of course, the Sennelier paints haven't been inside my drawer for a long time yet, so I can't give you a comparison on the long term, but I will simply just show you these sheets one by one. And I do have to say that to achieve this intensity, you need a lot of paint. So if you would aim for this kind of intensity, then I think I would recommend Schminky Horadams, or if you don't mind a lack of flow, the Magella Mission Gold. What else have we reviewed? Well, I'm a bit hesitant to recommend Old Holland now, seeing this this color chart, and this was done on good studio quality paper, just like all my other color charts. So but that's something to keep in mind when using Sennelier. You will probably use, if you like intense colors, you will probably use quite a bit of paint, which for some people, you know, can be, you know, a setback. But then again, it comes in really huge tubes, and well, over here in the Netherlands, it's not as expensive. This one is cheaper than, for example, the Core by Golden and the Daniel Smith. So especially when you do your calculations and you count by the milligram. But as you can see, you can achieve the same intensity with the Sennelier L'Aquarelle. Another paint that many of you will be very curious about, so I will show you that, is the Daniel Smith, which is also very, very intense in color. I like the Daniel Smith. I like it a lot. I liked it much more than I thought I would, and I also like it more than I hoped I would, because it makes me even more greedy for colors. I think my go-to paint, that's what I was thinking about this week, that if I had to move into a mini studio and I would have only one brand of paints at my disposal, which would it be? And I think if I had to choose for just one, it would be Schminky Horadam. The availability of Horadam is better than the Daniel Smith. The price here in Europe and here in the Netherlands, but undoubtedly it will be vice versa for the USA. So undoubtedly the Daniel Smith will be cheaper in the US and then the Sennelier. So that's something to keep in mind when choosing a paint. But still, I can say that the Sennelier, that I think I would compare the Daniel Smith to the Schminky Horadams. So, for as far as I can see it, and I don't have a big range of these colors, of the Daniel Smith, I just have a few, and I have the watercolor sticks that I liked very, very much. But in my experience, the same combination would be quite ideal for me, to have the Sennelier for the layering techniques, for the glazing, and to have the Daniel Smith or the Horadams for other techniques, or use it in addition on the same pieces of work. So just a quick leaf through. So these are the yellows and the reds, and as you can see, they're beautifully intense, although the Daniel Smith seems to be offering a wider range of pinks and purples, you know, and my complaining about a lack of pinks and purples isn't quite fair, in the sense that those are really delicate and tough pigments to handle. And anyone who's ever had a purple wall like I did in this permanent magenta, they know that it doesn't stay purple for long. The colors will fade, especially when the sun is on it. So I can show you the Opera Pink here from Daniel Smith, and then compare it to the Opera Pink by the Schminky Horadam. and then compare it to the Opera Pink by Sennelier. And then you can see that the Daniel Smith and the Schmincke Horadam are very neon. You know, they're sort of like otherworldly. And the Sennelier is much more a normal pink color. Normal as in not neon. I'm sorry, my dog is nudging me at my leg saying, I need some attention. What I was also curious about is that I found a really nice effect in the Sennelier paint that I know some of you are going to love. That is in the red violet and the cobalt violet deep hue. You can see some purple fringing. Do you see that here? The red violet is just one pigment, so it's not two pigments, you know, separating. You will see a little bit of bluish edge here. You will see a pinkish edge here, and here you will see the violet. The same applies to the cobalt violet deep hue. Some people may not like it, but I like it very, very much, and it reminds me of the Cascade Green by Daniel Smith, although the effect of the Cascade Green is much more explicit. Okay, so we're moving on to the blues now. So lifting one sheet. So we've ended up in the blues and the purples, and the Carbazole violet compares to the Dioxazine purple by Sennelier. And it's quite tough to say something about those colours. Tibber! Now, my dog keeps biting his foot and he's sort of hurting himself, and I don't want that to happen. Let's see, the French ultramarine here is granulating. There is little granulation on the French ultramarine blue here, and it seems lighter than by Daniel Smith. Let me see. Where's the other colour? Here is a phthalo blue, green shade by Daniel Smith, and I see a phthalo cyanine blue here that seems to be pretty identical. And then there is this Sennelier's blue that also comes close to the phthalo blue green shade by the Daniel Smith. So although the Sennelier's blue is a bit lighter. The Indian Throne blue by Daniel Smith is more purplish than the Indian Throne blue by the Senneliers. The Prussian blue by Sennelier is much, much lighter, although it's in the same hue. And then the Indigo by Daniel Smith is a little bit bluish, but more to the, I think the Indigo by Sennelier is a little bit more greenish than the Indigo by Daniel Smith. Let's see what else pops. The French ochre looks a little bit like the nickel azo, although it's slightly more greenish. Quinacridone gold. The quinacridone gold is color-wise similar, but it seems that the Sennelier behaves differently. I can't say it granulates. But there is some texture in this paint. It can also be because I applied quite a bit on paper, so I can't be sure if I use it in a painting whether it's going to look different still. What else do we have that's interesting to show you? Well, what's interesting here is that what I just said about the Van Dyke brown, that is interesting to show you. This is the Van Dyke brown by Sennelier, which is absolutely like a red kind of brown to me. The Van Dyke brown here is more like a very dark, almost grayish kind of brown. So that's something that I think is quite different. The warm sepia is quite similar, as you can see. It's very similar. What else can I show you? Just going over it with my, just eyeballing it. Burnt sienna, for instance. There is a lot in here. The burnt sienna is a totally different color. The burnt sienna here is more warm, more like a rust color, and the burnt sienna here is a bit more dull and a bit more liver colored, and this is more rust colored. So there are quite a few differences. Then there is the Caput Mortuum. Looks a bit like the Indian Red by Daniel Smith. All these names, I'm constantly thinking, constantly trying to think, don't say the wrong name, don't say the wrong name. Okay, moving on to the blues and the yellow, the blues and the greens, I mean. Moving back. What do we see? Well, the green gold by Daniel Smith still really pops. I mean, that's like the most beautiful green gold I've ever seen. So this would be a color I would buy from this brand. Although the Schminky also has a fabulous green gold. I don't have it. Oh, my dog is being a bully right now. I don't have it on a color chart with me here right now, but it looks like it a bit. But I love this color. Phthalo green is the bright yellow green. Looks a bit like the phthalo green, albeit that the bright yellow green is much more yellowish, which only sounds logical after when you look at its name. I'm being seriously distracted by my dog here. You little bully, or big bully. He's not little anymore. And he's curious to see what we're doing. He's a little darling. Then there is the Phthalo turquoise, Phthalo cyanide turquoise, and I actually think these colors are a lot alike. There is a really big, ugly, a big and ugly spot here. That's where the paint went on the paper, and I didn't scrape it all off. So, but the colors are very, very similar. Then the turquoise green. Yep, the turquoise green looks a bit like the cobalt teal blue by Daniel Smith, although it's more opaque and it's more a minty kind of blue, if you get what I mean. I don't see this royal blue in the Daniel Smith collection. No, there is no royal blue in the Daniel Smith collection. So that's something to, if you like this color, then you must definitely go out and buy Sennelier. And what else? I think this is it. I mean, what else can I tell you about these colors? I think I've showed you all I can show you on camera, and the rest is up to you to discover. So I highly recommend Sennelier, even when you're already working with artist grade paints. When you try it, if you try only 2-3 colors for layering techniques, you will find that it really works wonderfully because of the high percentage of honey that's in it. It really is a fabulously vibrant translucency that you will get with this paint. So I hope you've enjoyed this review, this color swatching, the comparison, and Well, for those interested in a watercolor class that involves this glazing and layering techniques, you know, you can always go to my course site and see if you're interested, and who knows, maybe I'll see you back in class. So thank you very much for watching, and see you again in my next video. Bye!